The Trump administration's decision to slash funding for the U.S. Agency for International Development could have implications for Ukraine's goal of joining the European Union. Ukraine has become USAID's biggest beneficiary since Russia's invasion.
And President Trump is optimistic that a ceasefire can be brokered, but many in Ukraine fear he is jeopardizing their nation's long-term security. William Denselow reports from Kyiv.
Building civil society and democratic principles from the grassroots level. Before Russia's full-scale invasion, the National Youth Council of Ukraine partnered with more than 150 organisations. In 2022, many of these groups pivoted to provide humanitarian aid or ceased operations due to the military mobilisation. Today, the council's number of partners is closer to 50. Natalia Shevchuk is the chairwoman of the country's National Youth Council and says that funding cuts to USAID means that more programmes are under threat.
Cutting of USAID funding cut all this opportunity which were building through the younger generation, understanding how what other democratic principles are and how they should work out.
Principles vital to Ukraine's aspirations of joining the European Union. USAID's provided Ukraine with roughly $37 billion since Russia's full-scale invasion. Those funds go towards a range of sectors, including healthcare, humanitarian aid, education and the rebuilding of the country's infrastructure. But some fear funding cuts from Washington could erode the building blocks used to support Ukraine's EU bid.
Democracy has another side. It's bureaucracy, it's legislative aspects which we as society need to build up and improve a bit, so it would be at the level of acceptance to and fully integrating to EU.
The Trump administration has poured cold water on Ukraine's hopes of joining the NATO military alliance. And there are concerns that the US could directly complicate Kyiv's efforts of joining the EU. Ukraine's president says he won't agree to a minerals deal with the US that could damage the country's accession aspirations, even though the US has said such a deal would respect Kyiv's EU entry efforts. While not commenting on the impact that a possible agreement over Ukraine's natural resources could have, European Commission spokesperson Markus Lemaire tells CNA the country's future lies within the bloc.
Ukraine has unequivocally proven its determination to advance in its EU accession and has undertaken and delivered on transformative reforms while fighting for its very survival and defending itself against Russia's ongoing war of aggression.
But ties between Kyiv and Washington are less assured. President Trump has frequently criticised his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelensky, even temporarily cutting off access to military intelligence. Back in December, before Donald Trump became president, an estimated 21% of Ukrainians had a negative view of him. But polling from the Kyiv International Institute of Sociology suggests that now more than 70% of people think he's bad for the country. The US government is seeking to broker a ceasefire between Ukraine and Russia, urging both sides to stop the bloodshed. But pollster and executive director of the Kyiv International Institute of Sociology, Anton Grushetsky, says only a quarter of Ukrainians believe the US wants a good deal for them.
People believe that even without the US, we should continue resistance. And actually, more than 80% of Ukrainians say that even US gives up on supporting us, with Europe, with our European allies, we should continue resistance.
European powers recently pledged nearly $20 million to further support Ukraine's EU integration. European officials say Ukraine's path to EU membership remains on solid ground. But without guaranteed US backing, many fear the country's long-term security still remains up in the air. William Denselow, CNA, Kyiv.